So I'm just going to talk, or do what we worked on. I feel like everyone has this moment where in their lives they're like, oh, I'm really an adult now, and they're a little kid. And that's what I'm going to start with. I think I was 12, and I was walking to my best friend Liz Weiner's house. And I lived in Fairfield, Connecticut, which is a pretty kind of white Jewish shelter town. And I walked like all the way down Casimir Street, like 3 whole houses. And I got there all by myself. And this was kind of a big deal for how I was raised. And then I get to a door and I look behind me and my mom was following me in her Jeep. And so that quickly turned into the moment where I realized I'm probably always going to be a sheltered little Jewish white girl from Connecticut. But she just wanted to make sure we were taken care of. I think my mantra growing up that she told us was, it's not the area, it's where the bad guy goes. So this also went into being very taken care of, very well fed. I was the kid in elementary school who everyone had their like normal like lunch tray from the cafeteria. Mine was like a lunch bag which was like twice the size of my backpack, and matzo ball soup in a big thermos. I remember like coming home from school and I'm like, Mom, I just want like a paper brown bag like everyone else with like the peanut butter sandwich and the box of apple juice. But I was always a little different, and I think this story kind of sums up my mentality too as a little kid. So for Hanukkah one year, my mom bought me this just fleece cow coat, which was so kind of ridiculous. It was like this long black and white spotted cow coat. It was embarrassing. I remember wearing it waiting for the school bus and not really feeling like everyone else. And so it was really embarrassing. And then I just had this moment when I was 8 years old, like, you know what, like if I'm going to wear a cow coat, like I'm going to own this cow coat. So like little 8-year-old Amy, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to become obsessed with cows. I'm going to collect everything cow shorts, cow like soap, cow candles. I changed my email address to Broadway Cow, and like that was my thing. And that was really who I was anyway. I mean, I just kind of loved attention. I loved performing. Like from the time I could remember, it was just musical theater and performing and me. I remember in 3rd grade, I got sent to the principal's office because the teacher left the room and I just got up on her desk and started tap dancing and I wouldn't get off. And at snack time, I would just like throw my apple juice on the floor and I would lick it out for attention. I was kind of in another world. In like elementary school, the teacher would be talking and I'd really have these really engaging daydreams. Like I was always thinking of like the next thing I could create. So I remember one time like I just took my desk chair and I like moved it to like the other side of the wall, while class was going on, like just so I could like focus on my daydream and like manifest this thing. And my teacher was like, Amy, can you join the rest of the class? And I snapped back and I'm like, no, I'm having my daydream. Please, just let me do this. So I was really I couldn't stop creating. It was always coming out of me. And that was really how I lived my life as a little kid. And I think that's why I was so obsessed with musical theater. I was really obsessed with Les Mis when I was little. So I actually bought like the whole like unabridged like Victor Hugo novel, which was like this big, and I couldn't understand half the words, but I would just bring it to school and like put it on my 3rd grade desk so everyone would be like, okay, she's really into this. She really knows what she's doing. So because I was kind of like always thinking and creating the next thing, I also got bored really, really fast. And so, I have 3 brothers, and they're all kind of creative and musical, and they really kind of help nourish that part of me. And so, like a big kind of turning point in my little 8-year-old creative life was my brother Matt. He got me a book for my birthday or Hanukkah or something, because I was really bored all the time. And he's like, I'm going to give you this book so you're never going to be bored again. And I'm like, you gave me a book so I won't be bored. But it was 100 Things to Be Happy About. And it was just like a book with a lot of lines, like a list, like I'm supposed to write in what I'm supposed to be happy about, which made no sense to me. And he's like, no, like if you have a lot of things to be happy about, then you won't be bored. And that really, in retrospect, it meant a lot, because it was kind of like a really basic way to show me at a young age, like, oh, if you find things to appreciate, then that's how you get happy. Like you're happy when you're grateful for things, and they give you more ideas to create. So that was kind of Matt's way of really kind of turning my creativity in a new direction. And from like a young age, I got really, really into like nature now and appreciating what was around me. And I would start taking these really like long nature walks and really feel like I was connecting with nature and feeling like the trees were alive, and I would start writing songs about them and journal about them, and all of a sudden like my creative world, which was basically kind of musical theater and making little skits that I would boss people around in, now it was like expanding as this like whole nature dome of inspiration. And at this point I was only like 10, but I was like this kind of zen, like feeling the whole world and creating something with it, which was kind of cool. And that stayed with me as a teenager too. So now, like, coming home from high school, like, the highlight of my day was running home from school and just taking a really long nature walk and thinking of, like, the latest stories I could write about the trees and songs. And it was great as long as I made sure I was home by 2:45, because I had to catch the last 15 minutes of Total Request Live on MTV, because I would try to just memorize like the top 10 to get a recap, so at least I would feel like I was like cool enough to tell something to my friends the next day. Because I still wanted to kind of fit in, so I would just do like a quick rundown and have something to talk about. So like, my teenage years, I was kind of in three worlds. I had like my musical theater world, like really driven, like dragging my mom to auditions as like the stage daughter. And she did not really want to do that, because she always said like, Amy, have a normal childhood, although I wasn't really normal. Then I had this like inspired nature spiritual world. I was into meditation before it was even like cool, before like yoga pants were invented. And then I had this, I was a teenager. I wanted to be with my friends. It was always a little different from them. But they respected that, like, wow, she's driven, she's doing musical theater. It was a close-knit world I was in. So this musical theater thing, I was, whatever I did like really obsessively and really driven. So I knew from a young age, like, I'm going to do musical theater. And so I was really, I did the whole acid reflux diet where I stopped eating 4 hours before I went to bed, and I could never let my head get, lower than my chest, and no tomato, no acid. I would go to school on like vocal rest and bring like a notepad and just write things down. And like thinking back, like the teacher just let me do it. Like everyone knew, like, okay, she's just a crazy theater person. So I would like raise my hand and just like write like down my question, and they would just tolerate me. So that was it went through a few notebooks. And so that was my world. And so it was really, really exciting when my mom found where everyone around Westport or Fairfield, Connecticut finds their local news. She was looking at a newspaper at her hairdresser's, and she found that this big Broadway star of Les Mis was actually moving to our town, and he was going to teach voice lessons. And we were all, my mom and I were like freaking out, like, oh my God, we gotta find this guy, we gotta set up a voice lesson. This was like crazy, like the Les Mis guy. And so we found him and we set up a voice lesson, and this was like amazing, I was like actually learning from the guy that was like on Broadway, and this was all that I wanted. So every week was just like, that hour was like the highlight of my week, and I would get like so depressed once that hour was over. I would like count down the hours to the next one. And, but I also had this really kind of disciplined, like determined side, like, okay, I want musical theater. So I think he knew it was time to send me to a voice teacher that had better training when I came to him like one week with like a typed 8-page list of like all my vocal goals. And he's like, listen, I'm just kind of teaching voice lessons to make a little extra money. I don't really know this stuff, so I'm gonna, how would you feel if I set up like a one-time thing with my voice teacher in the city? And so I was like, this is like the big New York voice teacher of the stars. So I was freaking out. A New York apartment. For me, like in my, Fairfield, Connecticut high school musical theater world, this was insane. So, I went with my mom on the train with like my whole musical theater binder, and like the person before me was like off to a Broadway audition, and this was like so crazy. So I really felt like this was a big time. So I go in there, I sing my song. I'm so nervous that my hands are just like going like this. And he was really impressed. And the first thing he said was like, wow, you have a big horn. And I'm like, wow. And he really thought I was good, which was amazing. It was like the ultimate validation. That wasn't just like my middle school chorus teacher saying I got this solo. So he said that, okay, I can like, I can fit you in and take you on as a student. This was insane. This was like bigger and better than getting an agent, which my mom wouldn't even let me get. And he said, he fit me in. He had my mother in the room because I was under 16 and he had a policy. And he would see me. Amazing. So I went every week and I really felt like, I'd reached the big time. But as I was going, what was so inspiring about these lessons was I noticed that he gave like such good advice, but it wasn't just like vocal techniques. He was giving like insights, like stuff I was into, like about appreciating the lyrics and like the higher things. And he was talking about nature and trees in the lyrics. Like I like that stuff. So now he was becoming not only this voice teacher that knew kind of like how to break into the biz, but he became like this spiritual guru. Like I was 16, I wasn't really around anyone that was, into these really deep esoteric kind of things. I would just get that out by like running home from school and like belting out like Sweeney Todd in my room when I was really angry and like feeling all this, but like he got those like deep things that I didn't know other people could get. So that really intrigued me. So I wanted to show him that like, I could act too. So the next lesson, I brought him a VHS tape of me doing Les Mis. My Fairfield Teen Theater, we did Les Mis one summer and I was Eponine. And he watched it and like I just watched him the whole time watching it. Like he really kind of was amazed at what I did, which was so cool. So he said like, wow, like, that, it didn't feel like you were acting. Like, how did you train? Like, do you have technique? And I said like, no, that's just like, I just thought about how I am in nature. And I just acted like myself doing it. He's like, wow, I can tell you really like tapped into stuff. So then like he started treating me different. And he started showing me these like art songs that like composers had written about like inspiration and trees and rain and like really like aesthetic things. And actually the first song he showed me was this art song called Orpheus and His Lute. And I had never even heard of an art song before. I didn't understand that you could write like not like cheesy musical theater stuff. Like it could be deep and inspiring. And as an aside, I learned later when I learned about mythology that Orpheus was this dude that like kind of lured people in with his lute and just played music and everyone would just kind of follow him. So that's kind of could have been a warning, I guess. But so anyway, I really realized like, wow, this like Bruce Blaine Buddha man, he really gets this stuff. So, I was still taking my nature walks and journaling about nature and all this stuff. And, one night I looked over all my stuff and I read it. I read like every word 50 million times. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to show Blaine, we'll call him Blaine. I'm just going to show him this. I'm going to show him my journal writings about trees. And believe me, I read it like 20,000 times where I could memorize every word. And so I gave it to him one week. I just like handed it to him. I'm like, I read a lot about trees and I kind of want you to read this. And he was like, oh, okay. And that whole week, I was like beating myself up. Like, why would a big like voice teacher who coaches all the people on Broadway and NBC and everyone, like, why does he want like a 16-year-old's diary? So I came back the next week like feeling like he's gonna kick me out. This was really stupid. And he said, wow, like that was so insightful, and I'm so thankful you shared that with me. Your insights were just amazing. And he's like, I want to show you some more music I think you would like. And he actually introduced me to Joni Mitchell, which was another kind of inspiration I'd never even heard of, like how someone could write these beautiful kind of folky songs and talk about nature and all these cool things with this like hippie vibe, but like really deep and tuned in. So then, like at that point, I was just obsessed. Like I think that was the day that Blaine became like my god, where like I didn't care about anything else. Like every week I would take my same nature walks and spiritual walks, and it was like everything I was thinking, I was like, okay, yeah, I gotta show him this. He's gonna love this. It was one person that really got all this nature stuff. I was like a flower child, like getting all this inspiration. And so every week after lessons, he started showing me more and more songs, and I would stay like 10 minutes to hear a song, and that turned into like 20 minutes and an hour, to the point where my dad was like, because he would drive me back and forth to the city after school, he's like, okay, what time should I, come back? And, then it would come back 2 hours later, and Blaine was like my best friend. So I really didn't care about everyone else. Like I was in the clouds with all this inspiration. It was great.
And so what happened next? Sorry, train of thought. Oh yeah. Okay. So that was great. And then, sorry, I'm thinking so much stuff in my life. Right. Okay. So. He had moved me to the end of his lessons just so I could kind of have his time. And one time he had another lesson, and no, I'm going to fast forward. I'm going to rewind. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. Okay, it got to the point where he was showing me so much stuff that like I was there till like 9 at night. So that kind of weirded my parents out a little bit, but I think we were all taken under his spell. And so, I was talking to my parents who like really appreciated that I have this huge mentor in my life. And they all looked up to him, like I did. This was like in the old days when the sages, showed you stuff. And so I'm like, should we invite him for Thanksgiving? And this was crazy, because again, like big guy in New York. But we invited him, and he came, and this is like God is walking into our like stupid like family Thanksgiving dinner, and my mom and I, after he left, we were like, it was like a huge celebrity had just like blessed our home. Like now we were all like kind of taken by him. And so the next week I came back to lessons, and he showed me more music, and so we sat on the couch, and he said like, do you mind if I smoke my pipe? And I'm like, okay. I'm like, he smokes a pipe? And that was kind of cool, and it really felt like, wow, like he feels cool enough to like just smoke his pipe and like talk to me like a real person, like we're like buddies. And so again, like that whole week I was like, now Blaine and I are friends, like this is awesome. And then the week after, during lesson, he said, knowing me, I realized that when I took out my pipe, it was probably wrong because I'm still a teacher, even though I'm showing you all this, and taking out that pipe was kind of taking off my teacher hat, so I do want to apologize for that. And so like my little like 16-year-old heart was like crushed, like I thought he was like my friend, and then I really beat myself up that whole week, like, oh my god, that was so stupid. He was 60 years old. I mean, like, why would he like it? He's like this big important Shakespeare dude. So then that was kind of compounded the next week when he sent a letter home to my house saying, you know, Amy has really kind of opened my heart and touched like my life, and really she's so amazing, like I would be honored, like I would love to have her as my goddaughter. And so my parents were like swooning, like this is so sweet, you know, this man has definitely come into our home for a reason. And you know, my mom said like anyone that, you know, can treat my daughter like this is family to us. And so I was saying after every lesson that, you know, Blaine said to my parents, you know, like, I have a studio space upstairs that's completely different. Instead of like staying the whole time, you just have her sleep over and then she can take the train home. And we were like, okay. I think we're all kind of comatose, you're just very tranced. And so the next time, he said he had a lesson after mine, but so like go grab like food with my parents and then come back. And so I went with my parents and we went to like Hunan Gourmet across the street, and I got shrimp and broccoli with black bean sauce. And you know, the hour was over, so I, you know, at 7 o'clock I came back. And the reason why I remember that meal like so vividly, you know, in my head I can like see that, you know, shrimp and black bean sauce like in that takeout container, bring it back. Because that's kind of the last visual moment I remember before like just everything changed. And so, you know, everything happened like very, very suddenly, where I was so sheltered that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, this is like the last moment before my voice teacher molested me, which came out of nowhere to me. And I just remember like, you know, like flashes of images and sound, like a movie playing. Somehow there's like a bed coming out of the couch, and I just remember not thinking anything, like, what is going on? And, you know, I've done so much, you know, studying of, you know, trauma and things like that. I realized I had kind of like the freeze response where I sort of went into shock. And so the next morning, I remember waking up and the first thing I thought was, I wonder if my voice teacher's gonna like run out of bed and be like, oh my God, I'm a pedophile. But he didn't. Instead, he was just kind of like this new person that I didn't even recognize. And, you know, I just remember like really numb things, like pouring like milk into like muesli that was like in the cabinet. I don't even remember how it tasted. And then like we went to the Met Museum of Art, because I guess that's what you do the morning after you're molested, you just go to the Met. So I was so spacey. Like I remember like walking down the hall, and he even said like, you're acting like a space cadet today. And I'm like, yeah, I was just tired and I didn't really know what was happening. And so then I took the train home to my house in Fairfield, and you know, everyone was like so happy, like wow, you know, he's really kind of mentoring you, like. And I have 3 brothers, and my brother Jeff was home, and you know, I don't really remember much about that whole time, but I remember he said, oh, that's so cool, you were at Blade, like, so what did you guys do at Blade when you slept together? And we went, oh my God, I shouldn't have slept together, you know, like slept there. And I'm thinking in my head, no, I think we did sleep together. And so, you know, this was, you know, to say I was like numb and having no clue what was going on is really an understatement, because, you know, my head had been in the clouds to begin with. Now I was like above the clouds. Now I was like not even here. And so I couldn't even put the words molesting. Like I was just confused. And so I didn't realize how that had changed me inside. I didn't realize until, you know, the next week or the next day, I tried to take my nature walks like I always did. Like, okay, find my inspiration in the trees. But like, I couldn't find that. Like, I'm like, what is going on? This isn't working. Like, where's like the magic where all the trees are like talking to me and we're singing songs and stuff. But, you know, so I couldn't like, I didn't have that emotional level anymore. So I could feel the shift in me actually by, instead of having all this energy in my heart and my brain, all I could focus on was my feet. And like all I could do was just like walk faster. and just everything became physical. So I got this like mechanical kind of robot mindset that like everything just became like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, like I couldn't think above that. So I felt like, okay, maybe I'm just tired, like what's going on? But then like that started just turning into like, wow, like I'm anxious all the time and I'm like numb and I don't feel anything. And it started really showing on me visibly where like I just, went to school and I like didn't care. Like everyone looked at me like, why is she such a robot? Like this was the girl like wearing the cow coat. And I still couldn't tell what was going on. Like I was going back to lessons, like thinking like, okay, I'm just tired. And he was still molesting me every week and I was just like not getting it. And so, we would have our lesson, which I was still paying him for, and like we were singing this song like Hello World, which is all about like nature and inspiration, and I just wasn't connecting. He said, Amy, I think like you need new images for this song, it's just tired, I'm feeling like you're not connecting. And I'm like, oh my God, now I can't even act anymore, like what the heck is going on? So basically things got bad inside really fast. This like compulsive like movement started coming from the pacing because like I wasn't feeling anything. So that pacing turned into compulsive like exercise, and I just kept like leaving class and just like going so I could just run because I didn't know what I was feeling. It just felt like now there was like this hitman in my head that I was always trying to get away from, and I thought like, oh my God, what is happening to my head? And I was still going back for lessons. And then I started, losing weight, which I didn't even get until we went to a physical, and we were also out of it that none of us knew how that had happened. I was terrified of that, but I couldn't stop like exercising because it always felt like I had to be running away from something. And so my family started noticing. They didn't know what was going on, so my family started to fight with me. My mom and I would have all these fights. My brother called me like an exercise anorexic. I thought, oh my God, am I anorexic now? Like what's going on? And so, Blaine on the other end, he was seeing all this, and he was kind of loving this. And he would, I would still stay after lessons, and he would say, you're developing anorexia because it's a teenage thing, it's a perfectionist thing, but it's also, your family is very dysfunctional and you have to figure out the dynamics and you guys need therapy. And then my mother would call him, as like her therapist, like, oh, Blaine, what's gotten into her? She was like very anxious and I can't talk reason to her. And Blaine would counsel my mom on the phone. So he's like running this whole intricate thing where I'm fighting with my family and no one can figure anything out. And I feel like I'm having a breakdown. And soon I started to just hate him. I was stuck there every weekend because I didn't know how to break free of it, and I felt like this caged animal there that was just like stuck in his apartment every weekend. My friends kind of thought I was doing this thing, he was still teaching, and I felt like he was going around like this king of the world, like teaching all these like top celebrities, and like I was like upstairs, like hidden like this thing that couldn't get let out. He had a student in Wonderful Town when Brooke Shields was in it. So, he took me backstage because he would still take me out and out to dinner and things, and I would feel like so embarrassed, like, and just hating myself because I didn't even want to like get dressed right anymore. I didn't brush my hair. I just wore like a sweatshirt. I just hated myself. And so I remember going backstage after the show, and like, in my old life, I would have been thrilled, like I'm going backstage and I'm meeting Brooke Shields, but I just remember like hating him, like, okay, he's shaking everyone's hand and, he's like acting like on top, and he's like saying, oh, this is my goddaughter, and I'm not even dressed right. I don't even have the strength to tell you that I do musical theater. I didn't even feel like I could do musical theater anymore. And he had promised me all of these, callbacks and auditions that he knew people for before, and now he was saying, you know what, you're underweight, you're sick, why don't you, just, take care of yourself first, and then, then you can start auditioning. So he was holding me back in every respect. And I was just feeling like, I don't know what's going on, but my family is yelling at me and I'm yelling at myself and this is crazy. My brother Jeff, he took me to visit him in DC that summer because, I think we thought, okay, maybe we'll fight less if I have some bonding time with my brother. And I still couldn't really fathom that I'd been molested, but I had to tell him something, I remember. So I remember, we were walking around, DC, and I'm like, yeah, the lessons are going good. Blaine is great. Yeah, he said this thing oh, we're so close that we might as well have a romantic relationship. That's what and I just said something, and he obviously was taken aback, and I thought it was a way to slide it to him where he could understand, but obviously what to make of that. He completely blew up and he started screaming at me what the hell do you mean by that? And so I was just scared because of that. So I said, never mind, forget it, I was just joking, and I took it back as much as I could. But that thought was still there, and I think that made things worse. And in the meantime, my exercise was getting worse and worse. I could not get this anxiety out of me, and I just felt like there was literally nowhere to run. So then I got back, and I'm maybe I just need an escape, literally. I was trying to run away, so I convinced my parents, let's go to Disney World. We always used to go to Disney World. I'll feel like myself when we're in Disney World. And so, Blaine told my mother, don't go to Disney World, she can't be trusted, this is not good, wait till she's healthy. But we're what, let's maybe be with a family, we'll be healing. And this was frightening to me, because this was my childhood place, and even here I was looking for places to go for a jog and not connect with my trees. So I got back that August thinking I am a demon, what the hell? And I was still going back to lessons, my dad was still paying him, and it was a mess. I went back to school for my senior year, and I had lost 20 pounds. I was a zombie, and I remember everyone looking at me, now probably thinking I was anorexic, so I'm judged even more, and I already have this attitude, get away from me, I can't stand myself, and I was just getting these awful panic attacks, and now I didn't even care if I made an excuse to my teachers. I just got up and left class, which was so not like me, and still going back to lessons, which was really crazy making. So I don't know what possessed me, but I just wrote a 2-page letter to my headmaster saying, I feel like I'm going to have a breakdown. I need 2 months off from school, so I can just take a breath. And I think maybe because they saw there was such a big change in me, but they maybe give me a problem. They're okay, Amy needs 2 months, all right, take it. And of course my mother is who met with me with the headmaster, she's oh, what are you doing? You're taking 2 months off your senior year. And I just want to take walks on the beach with you and find self-help books and borders and read them and color. And she's okay. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I'm okay, this is right, this is the right thing. And so I convinced my mom then to take me to this mother-daughter dance retreat in the Berkshires. And the one thing there were a lot of things about that weekend. I still couldn't fathom that I was molested, but I knew there was something in me that I had to get out. And for me, through creativity, that's always been a way that things come out that I don't know. And this was a big dance retreat. And for the first time since all this compulsive exercise started, in this dancing, and there, it was that very hippie, drumming and just there's fire, blah, blah, blah. So I was feeling all these things, and it felt like I was moving around and throwing myself, but it felt okay, I'm connecting with something here. And I remember just feeling everything was coming out. And one thing I want to say about that is only recently my mom told me that while she was there, some woman came up to her while I was dancing, and she said, watch your daughter, because she's struggling with something she's trying to tell you, and it's in her dancing. And I guess I was. So we came back, and we did our finding self-help books in Borders and watercoloring in the cafe. And I was just wandering around, and I found this yellow book, and it was The Courage to Heal. And I didn't know anything about the book, but I liked the title, so I took it out. And the caption was, for survivors of sexual abuse. And I remember laughing, because, like, sexual abuse, that was really, like, you hear that on Dateline, that's not, you know, bleh. So, like, I put that back, because that was, like, over-exaggerating things. But obviously, like, something resonated, so I took it back out, and I happened to open to the page of symptoms. And as I was going down, like, I feel numb, I feel out of body, I don't trust myself anymore. It was like a Hallmark movie moment where I was like, holy crap, you know, this was me. And that was the moment where I really felt like, more than anxiety, now I was holding a huge secret that I had no idea what the hell to do. So I bought the book, and I was having this secret, and this is how it came out. We were taking these walks on the beach every day. My mom and I were fighting more and more because I was still running and anxious and all that. And she probably remembers this better than I do, but I just remember walking, and you know, she said something like, I think it was on her mind or something. I should have her up here. But she said, like, did Blaine touch you? And I said yes. I think. Again, I don't really remember. And so she started obviously like freaking out, like any Jewish mother or anyone would. Like, oh my God, whoa, woo, just like in like Peanuts, like whoa, 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 whoa. But they weren't Jewish about that. So like just like intuitively, like I shook her and I'm like, stop, don't do that. Like, tell me something good. Like, tell me something positive. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, like, right now everything feels like so negative and so terrible that the last thing I need you to do is like give me more negativity. So like, just tell me something good. Like, look for something. And so she looks at the sky and she says, like, the sky is blue. And I made her say that. And that was a really nice moment that I would have played about later. But so now she was the only person that I told, and I told her, like, don't tell anybody, we'll figure it out. We're gonna, you know, make calls for therapy and all that stuff. But it shows how traumatized we both were, because at that point we're still like, well, what are you gonna tell them when you go back for a voice lesson next week? Like thinking, okay, well, keep singing. You know, we were so out of it. And so, you know, it took a while, like weeks for us to be like, oh, right, we should probably just not talk to him. And he had gone away to Ireland, and I think subconsciously that's why I felt like safe enough that he was out of the country to tell her. Like, because I know I felt something lift off my shoulders. So now the question became, oh my God, like he's going to call me when he gets off the plane, like what are we gonna do? And so we planned this all out. I'm like, Mom, you pick up the phone. She's like, okay, so yeah, pick up the phone. And the last email I got from him was an email he sent to all his friends about what he was seeing in Ireland and the beautiful trees and landscapes. And that was the moment I really looked at that email and like, these are all the nature things I used to write about. And I really felt like he had literally taken my voice, he's taken my inspiration, like he took everything. And that was just really depressing, like I was at rock bottom. So, you know, we knew when his flight was getting off, we were in my brother's room, he wasn't there, but we were both lying on his bed, and I remember like holding my little like flip phone, waiting for him to call, and my mom took off to pick up the phone, and so she goes, Bruce, or sorry, I'm not supposed to say this, crap, that wasn't it, oh, what the hell, he's gonna die soon, he was sick. So sorry, Mom, she doesn't like when shit, sorry. That was his name.
Yes, it was.
Stays in me. So he said, you know, he was like alarmed that my mom picked up. So he was like, Mel, is she okay? And she said, like, it's so sad, Blaine. It's so sad. And he's like, what's going on? And she's like, my family knows what you did. And so he goes, Marilyn, let's talk about this. Wait, you know, because he was always rationalizing things. So he said, like, let's talk about this. He said, no, I'm sorry, Blaine, it's so sad. And she cried and she hung up the phone. And I just remember like hugging her in bed, like crying together, like figuring out, okay, he's gone, like what are we doing now? So we really thought like, okay, we've cleansed this from our system, things are going to be good now. Passover, that was in February. Passover was coming up in April. It's always a really big deal to us. So we're like, you know what, this Passover is going to be our new beginning. We're going to invite like 30 people, like we always do, and it's going to be great, and purge it from our system. You know, we didn't really know how like PTSD works. We're like, okay, you still have to like, you know, talk about these things and figure it out. And we were reading our self-help books and coloring at Borders, so it was doing something, but clearly not enough, because the exercise was still getting worse and worse, which I didn't get because like he was gone. So anyway, you know, the day of Passover was this huge deal, especially to my mom and I. You know, we're like, okay, and it started out as a great morning. You know, my grandmother and I, we cooked egg noodles, and it was the first time I actually got dressed up in a while, and we really thought, like, this is going to be symbolic in the day. So we had our big Seder, we had 30 people over, and it was great. I really told myself it was great, and better things were to come. And so after that, I had a really bad stomach ache that didn't go away. For anyone that like knows my story, this is like my stomach exploded part. So I had a bad stomach ache after Passover, and it stayed for like 2 days. Now all I remember then is being in a lot of pain, like staying on the porch drinking like Coke syrup, and this was an unbelievable pain that wasn't going away. And my dad came home from work, and he's a doctor, and you know, he's like, you know, let's just go for, you know, see the family physician, just because maybe your stomach's a little distended. So the physician told us, you know, just go for an x-ray to the ER, and of course my mom was like, she can only have one x-ray, you know, like the radiation, one x-ray. And so things escalated really, really, really quickly. So now it's going to overlap into like what I remember, what other people tell me. But I just remember being in a ton of pain, like just screaming at everyone. And my mom said my cheeks actually just like puffed up on the way there, because you know my cheeks like perforated because there was so much pressure. And so I got out of the car. I think I like collapsed. And they took me to the emergency room, and again, obviously this is all the stuff I don't remember, but I guess like surgeons cut into me, and my stomach hit the ceiling of the operating room, and I was in a coma for months. And so none of this is coming from me, obviously. So what I'm taking you to sort of is, you know, what other people tell me. First of all, when I was sedated and in a coma, like I have great dreams. The one dream for some reason I always remember is that, and maybe because my brother Jeff, he stayed with me in the ICU probably most of the time, and he would always like suction me, like put this thing down my throat to clear the phlegm. And I just remember that I was living in an igloo with him, and he was my pimp. That's the only story I want to tell from the coma. That's the only story. But and apparently the first thing I said, like as I was like talking, was like it was him. And so now we're gonna kind of quickly go into, you know, what I remember. I remember that, you know, all leading up to my coma, it was so much anxiety and so much like I really felt like I was headed for destruction, or like I wanted to be headed for destruction. And somehow when I woke up, as scary as this was, it was almost kind of like calm, like wow, like I'm in bed and all my family is here, and like no one's fighting and everyone's like taking care of me. Like what's, like I was a baby, and I was calling like the suction thing like Freddy the fish, and like people were like babying me, and it was like a calming feeling, like I was in bed and I couldn't go anywhere. This was until I really kind of felt what was going on, and then I'm like, but I remember my mother, you know, we spent a lot of time together. We would color with like the same watercolors that we did at Borders right before I was sick, which was kind of haunting because I was still trying to figure out, like, you know, I literally like woke up in bed and my world changed. You know, the morning of Passover, we were trying to figure out what college I was going to because I had just got my acceptance letters. So everything was kind of a mystery to me. But I remember my mom took out a little mirror and she's like, look at yourself. You actually look more beautiful than you have in a year. Like, you finally got your beauty rest. And like, it's funny that everyone always laughs at that, but for me, like, it was true. Like, I felt like whatever was before this, like, somehow I had been rescued from it. Then I started to actually think about what happened, and I couldn't really remember, like, now I can remember, was Blaine good, was he bad? It was, my parents had to break it to me that I wasn't going to college, and just lots of funny, sedated stories. Like, I dictated to Jeff, like, please write a letter to the college, and I would just, like, start rambling about, like, Fruit Loops and stuff, when I was really sedated. But anyway, fast forwarding through all of that, I was discharged, before that. One thing that was strange, because no one gave me like a coma 101, that being in bed rest for all that time, like, you lose all your muscle mass. Like, all of a sudden you can't, like, sit up, like, you don't move. And so I remember, am I at 40? Oh crap, and I'm really winding down. So anyway, I thought I'd never dance again or sing again. I was discharged from the hospital, and I had to go years with uncertainty. I didn't have a stomach anymore, and doctors said, like, I can't eat or drink, and they don't know if I'll ever be able to again. So I was just home. So for a while, I went into that kind of numb place where I just locked myself in my room and just went back to exercise because I didn't know any better. I just went back to numbness. Sorry, trying to streamline. Then what happened after that? So basically, I went back to performing. A month after I got out of the ICU, for some crazy reason, I got the lead in Oliver. And this was, I could hardly walk, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. And my father, he actually joined the chorus so he could hook up my IVs every night. And that was like a really healing experience for both of us. Fast forwarding, I realized kind of creativity and performing was how I really was able to heal and put closure to all of this. I mean, years later, I was able to finally find the words, put a musical together about my life called Gutless and Grateful, which was a musical comedy that I premiered, in the city in 2012. And since then, I've been touring to schools and theaters and all of that. And the reason why, and I'll end with this, the reason why Gutless and Grateful was really a huge deal for me. Like, I put kind of the clincher on my story, even though so many setbacks happened after that, to all the way to 27 surgeries and 6 years without food or drink, was doing Gutless and Grateful was the first time that my father, he could actually just, like, sit back and watch. And my mom was helping me in the wings getting dressed, like she would for all my shows. It really felt like I'm back to doing what I love. We're fighting about little things like, should I put, like, these kind of earrings in when I'm performing? And so there was more, but I guess I should end there. That's my story.